Good evening, everybody. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum, your cool astronomer, back this month with edition number 45 of Night Skies at Home from the Franklin Institute. This is the Franklin Institute's program in which we introduce you to the night skies with a hope that you'll go outside and take in what's available to be seen of the universe this month. All kinds of great stuff and great ways for you to enjoy the night sky. And we're going to cover quite a number of them here. In fact, our program tonight is entitled Observing Locations, Local and Remote. Where can you go to observe the night sky? We'll cover a lot of different aspects about that. And hopefully this will be useful to you as you prepare for your summer vacations and enjoyments. This is a great time to be outside observing the night sky. The weather is warm. There's cool stuff to see. And you might want to know how to observe the sky wherever you either are or may be planning to go. So we'll talk about what it means to look at the night sky. There are a number of aspects to be considered, and we're going to cover all of that. We're also going to cover what star parties are available for you to participate in right here in the Delaware Valley and the surrounding region. These are events you can attend with amateur astronomers who use telescopes to observe the night sky. You can go out and you can observe with them, learn about what the objects are they're observing in their telescopes, learn about their telescopes, and learn about the hobbies of amateur astronomy at the same time. So I understand there's some background fluctuation from my sky in the background. No, I'm not all the way out at the Pillars of Creation Nebula, but that's what the image is behind me. It comes from Webb Space Telescope, and apparently there's a little bit of some weird electronic stuff going on around my head and shoulders and stuff like that. So please bear with it or ignore that. I am right here on Earth. It's just nice to have really cool pictures in the background. Okay, so first of all, again, this is edition number 45 of Night Skies at Home for May 2023. I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at Franklin Institute, your cool astronomer. I'm here this evening with my studio producer, Linda, over here. Say hi, Linda.
Hello, everybody.
And our technical producer, Katie, is in the background. She'll be the magic hands guiding us around some of the web links we're going to hit this evening and stuff like that. However, what I need to know from you is, where are you enjoying this program? Where are you listening to this program? We'd love to find out where you are so that we can understand more about what your skies are like. So let's find out where you are. We also love to have your questions. So if you have any kind of questions around astronomy or space exploration, space science, any of that sort of stuff, or questions related to observing the sky where you are, what's that thing I saw, or what's a good time for me to be out, or which direction should I look, what kind of star map? We'd love to have your questions, so please send them. And I have a question for you that's related to our topic tonight, and that question is, can you see the stars from your house? Can you see the stars from your house? We put that question out earlier before as we were promoting the program this evening. We got some responses from folks. But if you're just joining us related to our topic tonight of where to observing locations, we'd like to find out if you can see the stars from your house. So please let us know. All right, great. So the other stuff we're going to talk about tonight, sky phenomenon. What's out there for us to see? We'll talk about sunrise and sunset, where we are in the seasonal kind of thing. We'll also talk a little bit about the Starship flight test. We're going to recap that a little bit so you can understand whether or not that flight test of the SpaceX Starship spacecraft was a success or was it a failure? I mean, it did launch, right? But then it exploded. So wait, what is it? Is it a success or is it a failure? We'll talk about that just so you can have that framing in mind for this next step in our future of space exploration. And make no mistake, folks, this is a big step. This is going to be a big piece of how humans access space in the next several decades. So hold on to your hats for this one because it's going to be a major one. All right, great. We'll also talk about the astronomical events for the month, what's available to be seen in the night skies as well. Okay, so let's not forget, I want to see your questions, please. Also, let us know if you can see the stars from your house and let us know where you're observing from, and that'll be great. Okay? All right, super. Thank you very much. So let's get started with our sky phenomenon for tonight. We want to start there. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention. The other reason why this program is very useful to you is because everybody can be a sky watcher. You don't have to be a professional astronomer or anything like that. You don't have to be advanced. You can be a beginner. The information you find here will help you get started. And hopefully, this will introduce you to a wonderful way for you to connect with the universe. That's what we're all about, is trying to get you to connect with the universe, helping you to connect with the universe and to discover some of the really cool stuff that's out there to be seen. There's a lot of information across the web, of course, lots and lots and lots of images, but it's a really good idea for you to get out and look at the sky yourself. Take some friends out and observe to see what's there to be seen. Of course, one of my favorite observations of all time is International Space Station. 7 to 10 astronauts orbiting the Earth in a spacecraft that you can see easily with no trouble at all. It's a real tangible connection to the rest of the universe, and to space exploration. We'll also cover some of that too. All right, so let's get to the sky phenomenon for this month, the cool stuff that you need to know around sunrise, sunset, and all that jazz. All right, so here we are this month in May. We're past the beginning of spring. In fact, the first day of this month marked the halfway point between the first day of spring and the first day of summer, May Day. May Day is one of those days that's known as a cross quarter day. Cross quarter because it's halfway between the first day of spring and the first day of summer. There are other cross quarter days around the year that mark that point halfway between one season and the next season. Almost all of them have a special, significant day that you already know. One of them, of course, is February 2nd. Do you remember what that day is? Remember that day? Yeah. What do we normally call February 2nd? We call it Groundhog Day. That's a cross quarter day, halfway between the first day of winter and the first day of spring. Another one you're really familiar with comes up late in October. October 31st. What day do we call that typically? We typically call that Halloween. That's a cross quarter day, halfway between the first day of fall and the first day of winter. So here we are now at the cross quarter day, halfway between the first day of spring and the first day of summer. May Day is what that day is typically known as. In other places around the world, it has a different significance. Right around this time of the year, for some of the northern environments in Europe, May Day marks the beginning of summer. That May Day marks the beginning of summer. That's a cultural summer as opposed to an astronomical summer first day. First day of summer astronomically has to do with the Earth's position in its orbit around the sun. Culturally, it has to do with the climate and the weather conditions. So for some of those northern cultures in Europe, May marks the beginning of summer for them. Okay, so here we are on this first day. And on this first week of the month of May, we find that sunrise now comes at 5:55 a.m. 5:55, now before 6 a.m., right? And sunset comes at 7:58 p.m. 7:58. So in just 4 minutes Eastern time, we'll be at sunset. Of course, for the rest of the country, it comes an hour later as we go from time zone to time zone, you know, all that stuff. And we're still gaining about 2 minutes of sunlight every day. A few minutes in the morning and a few minutes in the evening. I should say 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute in the evening, since it's only 2 per day. We're going to keep gaining time until we come right up to the summer solstice. And then we'll stop. We'll talk about solstice when we get to it, but we'll stop gaining time on June 21st, the first day of summer. All right? Okay, great. What about the moon? Well, as it turns out, the moon is very close to full. In fact, you could argue that we have a full moon tonight. Really, full moon arrives tomorrow afternoon at 1:36 p.m., I believe it is. That's when we'll get to the actual point or instance of full moon. If you can see the moon tonight from where you're observing, it's going to look full to you. So it's almost at 100%. It'll really be at 100% tomorrow, but it'll be close enough, okay? And the full moon rises this evening at 7:06 p.m. So what is it, just about 50 minutes ago, the moon rose over on the eastern horizon. In fact, if you have a chance to catch it right now as it's rising above the horizon, it could look really, really, really big. That's because of an optical illusion, a trick that our brain plays on us between how our eyes perceive something and how our brain perceives something about an object like the moon on the horizon near objects of known size. This is a very well-known illusion that makes the moon look really large. The moon is the same size as it always is. If you were to measure it now and then measure it again when it's high in the sky, you'll find that the apparent size is the same. So there's no big change going on there, but this is a great way to sort of induce a supermoon, if you will, at the beginning of on the day of full moon of every month. You can actually induce that supermoon effect where the moon looks really big. All you need to do is watch the full moon as it rises on the horizon near objects of known size. You can get that visual effect. And there you go. You have your supermoon, right? Okay, so again, moon rises tonight at 7:06 p.m., just about 50 minutes ago, as it's 7:56 right now. And it sets tomorrow morning at 5:45 a.m. 5:45 a.m. tomorrow is the moon set over on the western horizon, just before sunrise, which comes 10 minutes later. And it is full. It will be new again on May 19th. May 19th, the moon will be back at its new phase. So between full moon and the new phase, we have the last quarter phase that will come just about a week from now. Okay, so Linda, let's just check in and see where we have people listening from.
Oh, yeah, they're all around the Delaware Valley.
Cool, great. We have folks listening this evening from New Jersey, from Delaware, from Mount Airy here in Philadelphia, from Langhorne, Pennsylvania. There's some light pollution from a mall nearby and an auto dealership. Yeah, that's a terrible thing. That really hampers your ability to view there in Langhorne. But thanks for joining us tonight. And we also have folks listening to us from Ambler. That's great. Thanks to have you. Great to have you on board here for all of you that are joining us tonight. And we do have some responses from folks about whether or not they can see the stars from their house. Let's see. Aaron says, I can see a few. Mm-hmm. And let's see if anybody else has any comment on whether or not. Too much light pollution. Yes, that's right. There can be a lot of light pollution where you may be viewing from, and we'll see what we can do about that. Okay. Anyway.
Questions.
Oh, yes. Do we have questions? Thank you.
Yes.
My studio producer, Linda, here.
Yes. Millennial would like to know, would I be able to see the lunar eclipse from Gloucester City?
Oh, Millennial would like to know if you'll be able to see the lunar eclipse from Gloucester City, New Jersey. So the reason why I sigh about that is, in full disclosure, there's a lunar eclipse tonight. Yes. Nobody said anything about it, right? Yeah, there's a reason why no one said anything about it. The lunar eclipse tonight is what's called a penumbral eclipse. A penumbral eclipse is a special kind of eclipse in which the moon, when passing through the Earth's shadow, the moon passes through the lightest portion of the Earth's shadow. The deep, dark portion of the Earth's shadow is called the umbra. The lighter shadow that encircles the umbra is called the penumbra. If you're close to the boundary between the penumbra and the umbra, you might see some color on the moon. Color on the moon is how we identify that a lunar eclipse is happening. That's when the moon is passing through the umbral shadow of the Earth. If the moon is passing through the penumbra, particularly if it's passing through the outer regions of the penumbra, hardly any color can be seen at all, if any. In fact, during a penumbral lunar eclipse, you might not even realize that it's happening. There's so little color effect. The moon may not look any different at all. So, why do I sigh when I talk about this? Well, because often, if we promote that there is a penumbral lunar eclipse, a lot of people would go out to observe it and see nothing, and then wonder what happened. Well, perhaps we should leave it up to you to decide what to do. Well, if you go out and take a look, you'll notice there's not much color. So, not much to see, as opposed to a total lunar eclipse when there's a lot of color to be seen. So, I'll tell you, millennial, if you can see the moon, you'll be able to see the eclipse because the eclipse would be visible to viewers all across the North American continent. So, that includes you and us. So, you would be able to see the eclipse even though you can't tell it's happening. All right, so give it a shot. Go out, check out the moon, see what you can see of color. Now, as for that, wait until the moon gets up high enough in the sky. When the moon is down close to the horizon, there's always some color because of the effects of the Earth's atmosphere. So if you wait till the moon gets up high enough in the sky, you'll be able to tell if there's any color that's imparted by the penumbral eclipse. Okay? Hopefully that helps to explain that. What else do you have, Linda?
Aaron would like to know, what is your astronomy-based opinion of standard time versus daylight saving time?
Aha! What is my astronomical opinion about standard time versus daylight time? That's a great question, Aaron. I've thought about this back and forth when we do this time change thing. And I got to tell you that in some ways, I'm in favor of the change because when I think about how late sunrises would be for those people in the far northern reaches of the planet when we switch time in the fall, I'm a little selfish about it. I think I'd like to have that. I'd like to have the light earlier rather than later in the morning. So, in that regard, that's one thing. But astronomically speaking, there's another way to look at this actually. And the other piece of that is that does switching time around like this actually save energy, which is the original reason why this was done? And the answer to that question, I have been learning through various studies that have been done, is that there's no real advantage in terms of saving energy. So, what that means is that this alteration that we do really confuses people more than it actually helps things. Astronomically speaking, it does not matter to the planet, it does not matter to the solar system how we shift our time. Time is a concept created by humans to mark the interval between events. The universe needs no such gauge to recognize intervals between events. So the Earth doesn't care what time it is. Solar system doesn't care what time it is. Only humans care what time it is. So in that sense, doesn't matter. Okay, thanks for that. That's an interesting question, though. Really do appreciate that. Anything else, Linda?
Yes. Dana would like to know, how can you tell a planet from a star when looking up in the sky?
Oh, thanks, Data. That's always a good question. How do you tell the difference between stars and planets when you're looking up into the night sky? Here's the rule I go by. Stars twinkle, planets don't. Generally speaking, this will work for you. Stars twinkle, planets don't. Now, let me clarify. When we get down close to the horizon, because of the thickness of the Earth's atmosphere, any light you see, any point source of light will have twinkle. That includes stars, planets, airplane headlights, anything like that at all. And then you may have a little bit more difficulty differentiating between them. Here's an easy way to do that. If the object you're looking at moves at all in a diagonal direction or a horizontal direction, you're looking at an airplane headlight. If it's a star, it'll have a lot of twinkle. If it's a planet, it can have a lot of twinkle, but planets tend to be much larger than stars as they appear that way. So that might be a hint. So if you're, say, 5 degrees above the horizon or 10 degrees above the horizon, if you see an object that has twinkle, it's a star. If an object doesn't have twinkle, it's possibly a planet. Let's not forget again that it could be an airplane headlight. There are plenty of those around, and those of us who live in flight patterns really understand that pretty well. Now, you might ask, how do we measure 10 degrees at the horizon? It's very simple. Ball your hand up into a fist, extend your arm to arm's length, place the bottom of your fist at eye level, and then the height of your fist as you see it is 10 degrees measurement, approximately. Close enough for atom bombs and hand grenades, at least anyway, as we used to say. So that'll give you a way to do that. Thanks a lot for that question. That's a good one. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about what's available to be seen in the sky this month. These are really cool things that we need to know about. Let's start first with planets. Over on the western horizon after sunset, two planets are still in the western sky. Venus is the bright one, Mars is the dimmer one. If you can sight Venus as the bright one, all you have to do is look up a bit higher in the sky and you'll find another non-twinkling object. That non-twinkling object will have a slightly rosy tinge to it. That's the planet Mars. It'll be smaller than Venus will be, and it'll be much dimmer than Venus is. And it makes sense. Venus is a lot closer to us. Mars is a lot further away. So you can identify those two planets without much difficulty. Now, in the dynamics of the solar system, remember, we're all moving around the sun. So Earth, Venus, Mars are all moving around the sun. So we're standing on an observing platform. And as we look at these planets from the observing platform, our perspective, our view, our sight line changes from month to month. What it appears like to us as the observing platform, though, is that the other planets are moving. And so what you'll see from week to week is that these two planets are approaching each other. It looks as if Venus is climbing up toward Mars. It looks like Mars is coming down toward Venus. So over this month and the next month, it'll look like they're getting closer together. That's really a manifestation of the Earth's motion and Venus's motion, since Mars moves slower than us two. Okay? So when you go out to look for Venus. Note its position. That way you can compare it to where it's going to be next month, along with where Mars is going to be next month. And you'll be able to see some of these dynamics of motion in the solar system. But here's the really cool thing. Coming up later this month, the moon will slide past those two. And you want to start observing this May 22nd. So May 22nd, the moon will be just below Venus. May 23rd, the moon will be between Venus and Mars. May 24th, the moon will be just above Mars. So now you have two things that you're seeing. You're seeing how the moon moves past these planets, and you can use the moon to easily identify the planets. 22nd is Venus, 23rd between Venus and Mars, 24th Mars. There you go. Find the moon on those days. You can find the planets without too much difficulty. But here's the other thing you're checking out. You're also checking out how much of its orbit the moon covers every 24 hours. So now you can see the interval of motion that the moon has from day to day. And if you were to add up 29 and a half of those intervals, you'd come up with the entire lunar cycle for the month. So now you can sort of see how the moon moves from day to day. Don't forget, the moon is in constant motion, whether we can see it in the sky or not. So we might see it in the evening sky, and its motion will be difficult to see because you need some kind of background gauge to see its motion relative to something else. During the day, of course, we may not see it at all because the sky is so bright with sunlight. Doesn't mean the moon is not in motion. The moon's in constant motion, whether we can see it or not. But if you look from day to day at the same time when the sky is dark at night, you can see those intervals that it moves from day to day. And there's a great opportunity. May 22nd, May 23rd, May 24th. Make a note of that. You want to be able to see it. You also want to take folks outside so they can see it too. And then the other piece of this is, of those three, the moon is closest. Next in distance is Venus. And then comes Mars. So this will also help to give you sort of like a three-dimensional sense of how the solar system and the sky is actually laid out. There's depth there that sometimes is difficult to see, and having a view like this can help you see that depth. All right, great. So that's what to look for the planets. So as it turns out, Saturn is also visible in the pre-dawn sky. So if you'd like to see the great ringed planet of the solar system, you can see that in the pre-dawn sky. What am I talking about for pre-dawn? Well, since the sun is rising at 5:55 a.m., the sky begins to brighten at about 5:15. That means you're going to have to be up before 5 a.m. to catch Saturn low on the eastern horizon. When does it make its appearance? Well, at about 4 a.m. It's above the horizon by then, It will continue to climb in the sky as the Earth turns towards sunrise. So you have about an hour's viewing time from about 4 until about 5 in the morning before the glare from the sun begins to brighten the sky enough that you can't see it. So if you happen to be up at that time of day, or you wake up early, or you can't sleep, and you have a good clear view of the eastern horizon, and I'm talking to our listeners who are down at the Jersey Shore. If you're up that early, you have a good view out to the horizon over the ocean, and the sky is clear, take a look for Saturn. Don't forget to use binoculars. That will help your view as well. If you're not up that early, just wait a few months, because Saturn is going to make its way into the evening sky. So by August, Saturn will be pushing into the evening sky very late, midnight or so. And then as we move into the fall, Saturn will be rising earlier and earlier. So by October, we'll have Saturn up by 8 p.m. And you'll be able to see it in the eastern sky without much difficulty. I should mention also that Jupiter joins Saturn. I think it is in September. Jupiter joins Saturn in the sky in September. So you'll be able to catch the two planets together over there on the eastern side of the sky. So that's it for planets. All right, so here's what we're going to do next. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the constellations that are available for us to see this month. Now, helping us do that is our technical producer, Katie. And Katie is going to open for us a program that I really like to use called Stellarium Web Online. Stellarium Web Online, as you know, is a program, those of you that have been with us before, is a program I like to use to get us out to look at the night sky. It's actually an online map of the sky. And what Katie's going to do is Katie's going to share the screen for us and bring this up so that we can all see this. And hopefully you can see this right about now. There we go. I think it's coming up. Okay, now we can see this. Okay, so Katie's going to be the driver for us. But let me just lay out what we're seeing here on the sky so far. So in this window, folks, what you can see is you can see the Stellarium Web sky. You can see some starry dots in a blue field. You can see the ground in the black curved shape that's down below. You have some red letters here, W for west over on the left, N for north, low in the center, and E for east over on the right-hand side. And then over on the very far left side of the screen here, there's a panel that says View Settings and Planets Tonight. We're going to get rid of that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Katie if she'll go to the top bar where it says Stellarium Web. You'll see those three little lines just to the left of that. Katie, click on that. That gets rid of that. And now we have just the sky. There we go. Great. Excellent. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to choose the direction we're going to be observing. So right now, with the letter N in front of us, right there in the center, lower center, that indicates we're looking north. Now that's cool and everything, but I really want you to experience the sky as it actually operates. And what this means is that we need to be viewing toward the south. So Katie, what I'm going to ask you to do is take your cursor, put it on the letter E, click, and then drag the E to the left. There we go. Click and drag, click and drag, click and drag until we get the S right in the center. You're doing great. There we go. Lovely. Very good. Hold it right there. Okay, now go back to the letter S, please, Katie. Grab hold of the S, click, and then just pull down toward the lower portion of the screen there. Down to that menu bar a little bit there. That's right. A little bit more. Doing great. Keep coming. A little bit more. A little bit more. Yep, that's great. Hold it right there. Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's how you navigate, folks. See how easy that was? Okay, let's just finish out describing where we are here. Over in the lower right corner, you'll see a small gray box that has the numbers 21, 21, 25 in it right now, and a number that looks like a date. Well, this is the time date adjuster over there in that corner. When you click on that little thing right over there, it lets you adjust the time and date of observing, which is pretty cool. That's great. Yeah, thank you very much. So now you can choose what date and what time you'd like to observe. It can be any date you'd like. It can be any time of day you like. That's fine. And then corresponding over on the left-hand corner, there's another gray box that says near Haverford Township. Well, that's my location near Haverford Township, but that's also the bar where you can change your location. So if you're joining us tonight from Hollywood, California, you can simply put your location in there. Or if you're viewing with us from Cape Town, South Africa, you can put your location there. Or if you're coming to us from Svalbard in Greenland, you can put your location in and you'll get the sky for where you are. Okay, so now with the sky as we have it here, this is for the Delaware Valley region, generally 40 degrees north latitude on the planet, minus 75 degrees west longitude. So this general area is good enough. What do we have here? Well, we can see where the moon is. By now, you've been able to identify the icon for the moon. You've also been able to see the icons for Mars, Venus, and also Sirius, brightest star in our sky. Sirius, down low to the horizon there. Well, just above the letter W, you'll see 3 stars in a row, just above that house and those bushes right there. Those 3 stars are the belt of the constellation Orion, the main constellation of the winter sky. So at 9:30 p.m., 9:20 p.m., which is what the time is down there in the lower right-hand corner, at 9:20 p.m., the constellation Orion is just about to set. How do I mean? Well, with this map, viewing to the south, we're now set up to watch the sky as it passes across over time in the evening. Objects rise in the east, over there on the left. They pass across the south, directly in front, and they set in the west, over on the right. So Orion is just about to set below the horizon. Well, that means other objects are rising in the east to replace. Guess what? As it turns out, the sky moves about 1 degree per day. Just about 1 degree per day. So every day, the sky appears to creep from east to west 1 degree. Well, if we do 365 days, we get 365 days of creep. And that gives us one complete circuit around the sky for the year because we've covered 360 degrees easily. So every day, about 1 degree of creep. What are we actually seeing? It's the Earth's motion around the sun, folks. That's what we're actually seeing. Every night, we see that change of the Earth's motion around the sun. We're looking out into space along the shadow of the Earth. And every night, we get a little bit different vantage point of view as we move 1 degree further around the sun. Okay? All right. So I mentioned that Orion is right there on the western horizon. That's the winter constellation. Now what I'm going to ask Katie to do is go to the menu bar on the bottom and the left character that looks like a triangle. I'm going to ask her to click on that. That's my dog in the background. Something has alerted his attention, so he's gone after it. Thank you for bearing with me on that. Okay, so here now what we have is we have these really great outlines for the shapes that are made up by the stars of all the constellations. And we also get the constellation names. Pretty cool, huh? So now this makes it easy for you to identify constellations in the sky. So let's go back to Orion. Western horizon, 3 stars mark the belt of the figure of Orion, the waist of the figure. This is the hunter of the night sky. Yeah, thanks, Mike. It was pretty hilarious, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. Otherwise, he's pretty quiet. And then we also can see the shoulder star of Orion here called Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse is a red giant star, by the way. So as you're looking over in that direction, you might be able to recognize the red tinge that star has. The tinge, the color refers to the temperature of the star. It's a pretty low temperature star, around 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a red giant star right there. Okay, now, if we go back over to the east, where you see the letter E, back over there, what you'll see there is you'll see the letter E is just below part of a constellation called Serpens. Serpens is rather faint. We don't see those stars very easily. But if you go above Serpens, almost directly above, right in the word stellarium web, you'll see something that says Ulysses. Oh, that's the back end of the word Hercules. This is the constellation Hercules. And Hercules has a group of 4 stars that look very much like a keystone shape. And that's a great constellation to mark because there's an object there that looks really great in a pair of binoculars called a globular cluster. A globular cluster is visible there with binoculars. But if we come down to the right of Hercules, where it says Bootes, boots, it's really pronounced Bootes, that constellation has another red giant star called Arcturus. So the bright dot that you see there is Arcturus. Now, let's drop down one more till we come to Virgo. You see where Virgo is. You'll also see that where Virgo is, to the left of Virgo, you'll see where the moon is. And then just past the moon, you see Libra. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to draw a curved line that starts in Libra, comes up through Virgo, extends through Leo, on through Cancer, on through Gemini, through Venus, and over to the word Taurus. If you draw that curved line that goes through those constellations, what you've done is you've now drawn a line that goes through a group of constellations called the Zodiac group. The Zodiac group. The Zodiac group is a group of 12 constellations that marks the path of the sun, moon, and planets. And we all know these constellations very easily because they're also the horoscope constellations. You know, that constellation where the sun was on the day you were born? Yeah, well, there are 12 of them, and what we can see here now are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those constellations. We can see half of the total number of the zodiac constellations. The word zodiac, of course, means the circle of living things, but not every one of the objects is a living object. The other one that is not a living object that's actually here, can you guess? Can you guess which one of the 12 zodiac constellations is not a living thing? Post your answer in our comments, if you will, please. Which one of the 12 zodiac constellations is not a living thing? It's a very interesting story as to why it isn't. Okay, so here are the constellations that are available for you to see. If you use this map, Stellarium Web, which is easily available to anybody, stellariumweb.org, I think the URL is, you can use this map to help you learn your way around the sky. Don't try to learn every constellation at once, please. Start with a bright one. Learn that one. And then maybe 2 days later, learn the one adjacent to it and go outside and see if you can identify it in the sky. And we'll talk about then which ones we can get to. Hey, Katie has a response. Thanks, Katie. Libra is the one that she suggests is the constellation, the scales. Thank you, Linda. Libra, the scales, is the one that is not the living, one of the living objects in the zodiac group. Thanks a lot, Katie. That's great. Okay, so we've had a chance to talk about this. We know what's up in the sky. You know what's out there. You can see where Venus is. You can see where Mars is. You can see where the moon is. Great. Okay, don't forget, please use this map. If you don't like this map, that's okay. There are lots of others out there. You can choose one. Search around, find one that you like, and hopefully that'll help you to connect with the night sky. Great. Okay. All right. So now that we've done that, let's talk about being able to see stars in the sky. You remember at the top of the program, I asked the question, can you see stars from your house? Yeah. Can you see stars from your house? Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. There's a whole thing that goes on with this, and it's all about how human civilization has populated the planet and made it easier for us to live in whatever places we want to on the planet. One of the greatest inventions ever is the electric light bulb. It allows us to extend our day beyond when the sun is available because we have electric light to illuminate our activities at night. And that's a great thing in many ways. In other ways, maybe not so good. And one of the things that is a result of that is that we have light outside at night. And light outside at night makes it easy for us to get around at night. So for all of us that live in urban areas, we can get around our cities really easily at night because we have light. And that's great. If you live in a rural area and you need to travel at night, headlights on our automobiles makes it possible for us to get around. If you work in a dark place, flashlights give the light that you need to do the work you need to do in dark places. And so this can extend our day, as I said, in lots of ways. One of the issues, though, about that, though, is when we have light at night, depending upon how we use it, will determine whether or not we can see the night skies well or not. In many urban areas, the additional light that we use to get around illuminates everything in the area, as perhaps considered to be a deterrent to crime, along with the illumination. Well, often that light happens to also escape from where we need it to be, where we can see down at our feet and down around where our eye view is. It also extends up into the sky. In fact, one thing that has happened is a really interesting sort of, how do I say it, effect, if you will, that is an architectural element, I should say. Those are the right words. An architectural element called uplighting. Uplighting for buildings makes buildings look grand and majestic at night, and it makes them easy to see at night too. So you can have a building that then becomes a landmark around a region because it's tall and it's bright and it's visible from across the region. Well, that's not so good for the night sky, in fact, because as we throw light up into the night sky, it competes with weak starlight that has traveled over many, many millions of miles and even light years to get here, with a lot of interference along the way. And then it has to deal with the Earth's atmosphere, followed by the bright light of the city. So if you live in an urban area, the reason why you can't see many stars is not because the stars have gone, it's because of the night lighting we have that weakens, washes away the starlight, and makes it very difficult for us to see stars. So if you want to look at the night sky in an urban area, observing dim stars may be challenging. Bright stars, perhaps not so much. And planets, even easier. Planets can stand up to that bright light. Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, typically visible unless under extreme sky lighting conditions. Here's what I mean. An advantage between Philadelphia and New York City. I was doing a program for a corporation in New York City one evening out on a building patio at night, and I noticed that I could not see bright planets. Downtown, Center City, New York, Manhattan. Couldn't see planets. But in Philadelphia, I can see planets in the night sky right downtown. So, another reason why Philadelphia is a great city to live in. So, here's what you can do to observe the night sky, or things to consider when observing the night sky. And this falls under our topic tonight, observing locations, local and remote. So, when I asked you if you could see the night sky, if you could see stars in the night sky, that's actually a measure of how bright your night sky is. And a number of organizations actually use that as a gauge for figuring out how bright the night sky is. Okay, so let me do this. Katie, I'm going to ask you to go to a particular website. Just a moment. I'll tell you which one. Okay, so Katie, the website I would like you to go to is darksky.org, please. Darksky.org. It's the last one in the list that I sent you. We're going to share this on the screen. And folks, darksky.org is a website that will help you locate a dark sky place. It's a website that is managed by the International Dark Sky Association. This is an organization that monitors what sky conditions look like around the world, how dark a particular sky location is. And so you can actually figure out how dark your location is. And what you'll notice is what the level of darkness is around the world in various places. You'll be able to see what's light and what's dark. So that's a really cool thing. I mention this because this group actually monitors this and advocates to try to make places to try to preserve darkness as much as possible. This is the International Dark Sky Association. Occasionally, what you'll see is there's also a view of the continental United States taken from space by astronauts on board either International Space Station and or Space Shuttle orbiting the planet. And these images show us how bright various regions of the US are. So here you are at International Dark Sky Location. This is one of those websites where you can actually find out more details about how dark the sky is wherever you are. So any place across the country, not only can you figure out how dark your location is, but you can figure out where there are dark sky locations where you can actually enjoy a very dark night sky. So that's one resource you can use, darksky.org. Thanks, Katie. We can ditch that one now. So now let's talk about what's good, what's bad, and what to look out for where you may be observing. So here we go. If you're in an urban location, suffice it to say, as I mentioned just a moment ago, that you're going to be limited in what you can see in the sky. What we typically call deep sky objects, nebulae, galaxies, things like that, will not be visible to you in an urban area. However, the bright planets and brightest stars will be visible. Now, rather than be disappointed, let's use this to our advantage. In fact, if you live in an area where the sky is very well illuminated by night lights, being able to see just the brightest stars can actually make it a little bit easier for one to identify main constellations, because all you'll be able to see will be just the brightest stars of the constellations and not the other dimmer stars in the background that may confuse what you're seeing. So you can now look at the sky hopping from bright star to bright star. The brighter your skies are, the fewer stars you have. So that might make it really easy to get started because you only have 1 or 2 or 3 stars to begin with. Okay, it's still a beginning, and you can still see planets. Oh, and the moon. Okay, that's great. But if we move away from urban areas, we can get a little bit better. We can see dimmer objects. So now we can see even more of the brighter stars of a constellation. And as we continue to move away from urban areas, we can see even more stars. It just gets progressively better the farther out we move. But here are some caveats, some things to be careful of. As one of our listeners said, if you live near a car dealership, or if you're trying to observe near a car dealership, or you're trying to observe near a shopping mall, you're in big trouble. So any of those locations where there's a large amount of lighting, if you're in a suburban area or a rural area, don't try to observe anywhere near those big bright things. Get away from those. If you're in an urban environment, you can even improve your chances of seeing that sky if you just move away from street lights. Just move away from a street light. That will help. So these are some of the things you watch out for. Stay away from bright lights, stay away from street lights, and move yourself to as dark a location as you can find where you live. Now, let me add something to this, which is important these days, and that is, as you're looking for a place where the sky is dark enough for you to observe, we need you to be really cautious about your safety. As we know, we tend to think that using light can help to make an environment safer because it is a deterrent to crime. I'm not sure what the research is on this specifically, but you could interpret just from what we see in the news that this is not helping a whole lot. So you should always be aware of your surroundings. You should not go out to observe by yourself. You should always go with a companion. And you should always let people know where you're going to do this observation. That's really important because safety is important. Okay, so consider those things. Now, as you're moving away from bright lights, there are plenty of locations that you can head to. So let me run through a couple of my favorite spots around that are local places that'll give you an example of places that you might try. And I suggest places that maybe they aren't the darkest, but they have a good view of the sky. Here's what I mean. A low tree line, a low building line, fully open to the sky so that you can have as much of a 360-degree view around you as possible. Those kinds of things really help. So you want to be away from tall buildings. You want to be away from tall trees along with the lights, and that'll help. Now, maybe you can get to a particular hill that might do that for you. Here's one of my favorites. I call it Roxborough Hill. Okay, Philadelphians, work with me on this. You know how as you're going out to Roxborough, you go up the tall hill that's just on the east side of the Schuylkill River. You go up to the top of the hill, right there where the bus makes the turn going on to Ridge Avenue. That's going to run out along through Roxborough. You know what I mean? Take the Ridge Avenue that goes up to the top of the hill and across. Okay, right at the top of that hill, that's a great spot to observe from, looking back to the west and to the northwest. Why? Because you're right at the top of the hill. You're looking over the trees and buildings. You're looking out over the Schuylkill River, out over to the west. So that's a really great spot to view planets, because planets that are visible in the western sky are easily visible from there. The added benefit is that there's a really great ice cream spot there. Honey, what's the ice cream spot called?
The Creamery.
The Creamery. The Creamery is a great ice cream spot. So you can't beat this. Astronomy and ice cream, you got to go for it. Don't forget that one. That's a really good one. The other one is Schuylkill Banks. If you're right down in Center City, you know the Schuylkill River walk that goes down along the river? That's also a good location. And the reason why is because it gives a good view of the sky. So that's a cool place to try. The John Heinz Nature Preserve that used to be called the Tinicum Marsh or Tinicum Wildlife Marsh down by Philadelphia International Airport, believe it or not, that's a good location. Now, maybe the lighting isn't great, but you have open sky from there. And it's actually a little bit darker than I expected it was going to be. It certainly is darker than Center City. So that's a really good location. I really highly recommend that. Let's do something more regional now. We'll spread out from Center City and we'll do something more regional. Remember, a place that's a hill that has a good vantage point view, something like that, away from lights, always good. So now for something a little bit more regional. New Jersey actually gets quite dark in the southern regions, believe it or not. So a great place to go observe from is the New Jersey Pine Barrens. If you can find an open vista vantage point in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, here's a location where the sky gets excuse me, relatively dark because there are a few night lights out there. And that's a good thing. So if you're in New Jersey or can get to New Jersey easily, that's one location, the New Jersey Pine Barrens. A little bit further south, one of my favorites is Belle Plaine State Forest. That's down towards Cape May. It gets even darker down there. So that's a good location to view from also. So think about that. What I really like about the Belle Plaine State Forest location and other locations that are along, you know, the back way to Cape May, the reason why I like the back way to Cape May is because there are a number of Wawas along the way. So you have access to coffee and donuts and all that great stuff, right? You know, what is it, astronomy or gastronomy? I'm not sure what, you can blend the two together and it works out really well. And so there are gas stations and things like that. So that's really important. I like that. So that's the New Jersey side. Let's come over to the Pennsylvania side. Valley Forge State Park. Thank you, Paul. Valley Forge State Park is a really great location. It has a little bit of a lighting problem because of the nearby turnpike and things like that, but it has beautiful open sky vistas and it's nearby. So I think that's a really great location. Oh, by the way, P.S., Delaware Valley amateur astronomers often hold their monthly star parties at the Valley Forge State Park Model Airplane Flying Field. There it is. I got it all together, right? And they actually have an observing session, a public observing night star party coming up on May 27th. We'll talk more about those in just a moment. Anyway, Valley Forge State Park. Another one, French Creek State Park. That's a little bit further out, 45 minutes north and west of Center City, Philadelphia, but it's an easy drive, and that's a great location. I highly recommend that too. Oh, yes, and for all you folks that live out in that direction, thank you very much, Linda. If you live out and around these different locations, take advantage of those locations. State parks can be good locations. Always check to make sure that they are open at night or they have evenings in which they are open so that you can observe. And you can go to their websites and check for this and find out that. That's a really cool thing. Let's see. You know, I'd say the Cape May Peninsula down in New Jersey, the Cape May Peninsula, but not the ocean side. People often think if you go down to the boardwalk, you can really have a great view of the night sky. Yeah, the problem is that often there are a lot of lights along the boardwalk illuminating concessions and things like that, and that ruins your viewing. So you want to try maybe on the back side. Is it called the back bay? Maybe on the back side of the peninsula, looking out over the bay might be a better choice. Looking in the direction between Baltimore and between Wilmington. So this is looking northwest between Baltimore and Wilmington. These are two bright light sources that you'll be able to see illuminating on the horizon. So be aware of that when you're down in that location trying to view, although that is a nice location. The other ones I'll mention in that direction that are sort of regional, the Delmarva Peninsula, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia Peninsula, Assateague and Chincoteague, dark sky locations, not a long drive, but a regional place you can get to. And of course, the king of all of these regions that people tend to know about or have heard about for a dark sky location to view from in Pennsylvania, Cherry Springs State Park in Coudersport, Pennsylvania. About a 5.5 hour drive up towards the Pennsylvania-New York state border. But this is a state park that is specifically designated as a dark sky location. This means they have rules and regulations in place to manage how much light, how much disturbing light there's going to be at this location. So what they mean by this is you can come at night, but you have to turn your car headlights off as you drive in. Flashlights are not allowed to be used unless they have red filters. You can't use laser pointers to aim at objects in the night sky. And it's also a location that is set up so that if you bring your telescope, there's actually a power post in a parking lot that you can jack into for power for your telescope. I mean, they are really well prepared out there at Cherry Springs. And in fact, Cherry Springs State Park has a star party coming up June 15th through the 18th. That's Cherry Springs State Park. If you look them up online, you'll find all the information you need to know about their activities and the star party coming up over those 3 days, June 15th through 18th. So now let's talk about local star parties, because there are a number of those. As it turns out, here we are right now, beginning the observing season for public star parties. Almost all of the local astronomy clubs host public star parties. Star parties are events where amateur astronomers bring their telescopes to a relatively dark sky location and invite the general public to join them as they look at various targets in the night sky with those scopes. These folks are extraordinarily well experienced. They have really great equipment, and they love to share their knowledge and experience with anybody who wants to come join them to observe in the evening. So I highly recommend it as a great family event to participate in. And there are enough astronomy clubs around the Delaware Valley that there are star parties that you can go to every month at a different location with no problem at all. Here are a few of them. Let's start first with the Delaware Valley Amateur Astronomers, a local group right around the Philadelphia area here. You can get information about them at dvaa.org. dvaa.org. They have star parties for the public at Valley Forge Park Model Airplane Flying Field coming up May 27th, June 24th, July 22nd, August 29th. You can see the pattern. It's almost always the last Saturday of the month, and they also have a rain date. You don't have to remember the dates. Just go to the website and look up their activities, their public programs, dvaa.org. A really great group. I work with them a lot on different programs. In fact, they're all really great groups, and I've worked with a number of them over the years, so I highly recommend them. Let's go now to the Bucksmont Astronomical Society. So if you're in Bucks County, Montgomery County, here's a group in your region for you. BMA2, the number 2, BMA number 2.org. They have a star party coming up on May 20th. So if you go to their website, Bucksmont Astronomical Association, BMA number 2.org, you can find out information about that. I mentioned the Cherry Springs Star Party. That's a ways off. But let's do something a little bit more local again. The Rittenhouse Astronomical Society. You can go to their website at rittenhouseastronomicalsociety.org. Rittenhouse is a great group that's been around for a very long time with a long association with the Franklin Institute. They have something really unique and cool going on. They are now doing a lot of their public star events at a new observatory that's been erected out in Lancaster County called Ryan Observatory. Thank you, Ryan Observatory. It used to be known as Muddy Run, but Ryan Observatory, out at a place that's absolutely gorgeous, a beautiful county park, I believe it is, with great dark skies and incredible telescope equipment. You've got to take the trip out there. It's a little bit of a drive, but it's really worth it. They have a star party coming up Saturday night, May 6th. So if you look up Ryan Observatory online, Ryan Observatory, or RittenhouseAstronomicalSociety.org, you can find out the information you want to know about that. Okay, so check that out. Last but not least, the Lehigh Valley Amateur Astronomical Society. Now, this is a little bit further out, but it's another really great group. They're located in Allentown. Yes, I know it sounds like a bit of a ride, but you get darker skies and a greater vantage point of view from because they use their observatory and observing location at South Mountain. So it's a really great vantage point, full of really experienced people who know what they're doing. So if you're looking for opportunities to see the night sky up close and in person through great telescopes, I recommend any one of these groups: DVAA, BMAA, Delaware Valley Amateur Astronomers, Bucksmont Astronomical Association, Rittenhouse Astronomical Society, and the Lehigh Valley Amateur Astronomical Society are all great groups. So be sure to check all of those out, or anyone that seems like it would be good for you. All right, so folks, we've had a chance to talk about what's available in the night sky now: planets, stars, and the moon, and that's really great. And so I encourage you to get out and take a look to see what's there so that you can become familiar with the sky this summer. This is a really good time to do it. We've also talked about locations where you might consider going to look at the night sky that are darker than an urban environment, but we also talked about what you can observe in an urban environment. Of course, we mentioned these astronomy clubs in the region that have public star parties coming up this summer that you can participate in. And we also have had a chance to just talk about sunrise, sunset, and a few of those other things around there. So we have just a moment left here to see if we have any other questions. Any other questions, Linda?
Yes, indeed. Paul would like to know, how big is space and how many years are in a light year?
Oh,
Paul?
how many years in a light year? Oh, I got you, Paul. So let's do it this way. Actually, a light year is a measure of distance. It's the distance that light travels at the speed of light in 1 year, 1 calendar year. So how far can light travel in 365 and a quarter days? Okay, at the speed of light, what would that distance be? And so astronomers use this as a way to measure around the universe, but for limited distances, actually. And what that comes out to is about 6 trillion miles. It's just under 6 trillion miles, Paul. So 1 light year is equal to about 6 trillion miles. So if you want to know the actual distance, miles distance from Earth to an object, all you do is multiply the light years by 6 trillion, and that gives you the number of miles. So if we're thinking about the next closest star to us at about 4 light years away, what do we do? 6 times 4 is 24. So it's Alpha Centauri, 4 light years away, 6 trillion miles per light year. That comes out to 24 trillion miles. 24 trillion miles. So that's what a light year is. Thanks a lot for the question, Paul. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, Katie has a reminder that Widener University has an observatory and offers public nights.
Oh, fabulous. Katie, thank you for that information. I actually forgot about that. Yeah, Widener has a really nice observatory down in Chester. I've been there before. Widener University, thank you very much. I've been down there before and have used that observatory. It's a really nice location. And so that's another resource you can check out. You know, Temple University has an observatory at their Ambler campus. They may be open for observing every once in a while. It's worth going to their website to see. And Katie, thank you for reminding me about Widener University. That's a really good one. Folks, check that out. Oh, there's also the Delaware Astronomical Society that works out of Wilmington, I believe, or just across the Pennsylvania state line. You can also look them up. They're really great too. I've worked with them. Okay, last question, son.
How big is Uranus?
Oh, wow.
Excuse me.
How big is Uranus? Oh, I want to say that's a really good question. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't keep the numbers in my head. I think it's around 29,000 miles in diameter. What I remember is it's close to 4 times the size of Earth. So Uranus and Neptune are about the same size. And that's the number I sort of keep in mind, is about 4 times the size of Earth. So it's around 29, 30,000 miles in diameter, right around there. And, as one of the gas giants, not as big as Jupiter and Saturn, but certainly bigger than planet Earth. And that's a really interesting number, a really easy number that we can look up online or, to get up our books. And that's part of the reason why I don't keep the number right off the top of my head. But thanks a lot anyway, Paul. Greatly appreciate it. Okay, that's it for questions, folks. We really do appreciate you joining us today from wherever you've been listening to the program. Always great to have you on board. We really love your questions and your comments and things like that. We hope you'll get out and use this information to enjoy the night skies. Don't forget, take someone with you when you go out to observe the night skies. Last but not least, one of the best things to take a look for is International Space Station. If you go to nasa.gov, NASA's website, you'll be able to locate, you can look up Spot the Station. In fact, you can just search Spot the Station, and an internet search will take you to NASA's website. Put in your zip code, and NASA will give you a list of when International Space Station is next going to be visible above your location. No binoculars needed, no telescope needed. All you need to be able to identify is time and direction where to look, and you can go out and see Space Station as it flies over. It's especially important to take friends out to see this, especially young kids. It's a great way to fire their imagination and to engage them around space exploration and observing the night sky. So give that a shot and enjoy the night sky. Great month here in May. Temperatures are getting warm. Nice to be out. Get yourself set up for observing through the rest of the summer, and you'll have a great time outside. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, folks. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Next month, we'll be back talking about the summer solstice. Don't forget, I'm Derrick Pitts, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute Science Museum, your cool astronomer, helping to introduce you to the night sky. It's your sky. Go outside and enjoy it. Thanks a lot for joining us, folks. We'll see you next month. So long.